Yeah, in a couple of years, you'll be a full-time mathcore musician, so it's all good, man.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the plan,
That's where the
sponsored by
money's
Elon
at.
Musk or
Like,
something.
everybody
Yeah.
knows that if you want to make some money, you play a bunch of panic chords. Like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
just
Well, actually, I've heard that the big money is in cyber grind these days, but it's
true.
like Bitcoin. It goes up and down.
Welcome to the 91st episode of the Cast That Ends Creation. I'm your host, Chris Deering. This is the show where I interview bands and public figures from the mathcore adjacent communities. If you beautiful people in chat have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in. I'll try to read them aloud. If you like to sub for $5, you get access to some exclusive emails as well as access to the interviews before they hit YouTube and other streaming services. You can also sub for free by attaching Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. It's like taking $5 from Jeff Bezos' pocket and putting it into mine. If you're watching this on YouTube, listening to this in your car, and have no idea what I'm talking about, the show is first shown live on Twitch. Join us every Sunday and Wednesday at twitch.tv/thecast for the live cast. With that out of the way, let me introduce our guest today who dropped their debut album, Patron Saint of Lost Causes, which came out back in August. Welcome in Jón Þór Sigurleifsson. Oh, dude, I totally forgot to ask you how to pronounce your name in the beginning. Is that correct? Sigurleifsson?
Not quite. It's Sigurleifsson, but
Ooh.
I will comfort you by saying that this is not the first time that A, someone butchers my last name, and B, where I actually join a podcast and someone realizes mid-intro that they haven't asked me how. So it always entertains me a little bit.
Sigurleifsson. It's Sigurleifsson.
Yeah, more or less, yeah. I won't make you repeat it again and again.
What's the worst way someone has ever pronounced your name?
Probably Sigurleifsson or something like that. But to be honest, it's actually mispronounced a lot, even back in Iceland, where I'm from, because the way that Icelandic surnames work, it's just that I am the son of someone called Sigurleifur, and my dad's name is like rare as shit back there. So people always assume that they see it and they think it's one of the more common names that are kind of similar, so they end up doing it wrong anyway. So yeah, I've basically been used to it my whole life. It's fine.
Even people that speak the language get it wrong. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, what does your project's name mean exactly? And am I pronouncing that correctly? Is it Kilprez or how do you do it?
Kilprez, yeah. So technically, it kind of doesn't mean anything. So it's kind of a funny story behind it, actually. So years ago, I was in this progressive metal band where I played guitar and did some vocals. We had a lead vocalist, violinist who did vocals. We had a pianist, bassist, drummer. It was it's a big unit. And luckily for all the bars we played at that didn't have a big enough stage, we ended up playing floor shows, which made the bar feel packed because there was a shitload of us. But the problem with, having 6 people in there, it's kind of like a polyamorous platonic relationship because everyone has their own little lives and, dreams and expectations, and none of them include not getting paid for being in a progressive metal band. So we had a lot of member turnover, a lot of starting from square one. And one day our bassist kind of says to me, look, I really just want to do something that we can get done pretty quickly. Something that's like, while it could be complex musically, that it's like simple in structure. It's like me, you, and a drummer, just like bass, guitar, loads of vocals and drums and just crazy shit, but something we can get out there. And I was like, fuck yeah, man, I'm so down for that. So we meet up in the practice space and I say to him, like, man, are you ready for the first rehearsal of Codename side project? I don't know why I added Codename, but he just looked at me so disappointed and was like, man, so fucking dumb. That's not a code name. It's just a side project. It's like if a military coup would refer to themselves as like Codename Kill the President. And we had a good laugh about that. And we ended up writing the basis of a song that evening that we ended up calling Codename Kill the President. And you can probably see where this is going now, because as time went along, Codename Kill the President became a very long way to refer to a song at practice. So we started calling it Codename, but then we had another song that we called Codename Something Else. So that got shortened to Kill the President, then Kill President, and then Kill Press. And after a couple of rehearsals, we were like, man, Kill Press would actually be kind of a dope name to call the band. And we just wrote it on this whiteboard and started messing with it. Like, I'll take out an L, change the S to a C, and like make it look foreign by adding an accent above the E. And we just left it like that on a whiteboard. And we shared a practice space with a few other bands. And one day, one of them's like, hey dude, can I wipe this whiteboard clean? Because like I don't know what this is. It looks cool, but like we need to write some stuff down. We were like, oh yeah, it's the name of our project. And like so many other projects, that it just never took off. We never got a drummer. So it was kind of just left in the air. So when I decided to do this album, I actually did it in a way where I went, cool, I'm going to set myself a deadline and actually finish some shit. And I wanted to find a name for the project, and I was jumping between a few ideas, and then I just came across like an old folder of ideas for this project, and I was like, I still really like the way it looks, stupid story and all. So I reached back out to the bassist for my old band and basically just said, do you mind if I kind of revisit this name? And he was like, dude, I'm perfectly fine with it. I'm happy that it's being used. I just have one question to ask, or like one request. And it's that in the booklet for the CD, it'll say like special thanks to me, and then just you know what you did with no further explanation. So that's why on Bandcamp in the CD booklet, it says special thanks to Tape, you know what you did.
Dude, you're hitting on all the things I was gonna ask you, because like I was wondering if Kilprez is because it was like kill the president, and that name would be like too like offensive or whatever, get you like on a list or something, so you shortened it. And then the little apostrophe, since you said that I pronounced it correctly, I was gonna ask like, does that even mean anything then? And then I was gonna ask you about the Bandcamp thing. So you're interviewing yourself over here. But no, that's awesome, man. Has anybody like tried to pronounce the name of the band differently because of the apostrophe, like Kilprez or something like that?
Yeah. So I've heard Kilprez, and back in Iceland, because the E with the accent is actually a letter in Icelandic, and it's pronounced yeah. So I heard Kilprez a couple times, which
Okay.
starts sounding kind of Eastern European. And yeah, I've heard a couple of versions, but mostly I just get asked what it means or where it's from. And I don't know, I quite like that story, because I quite like having some story behind like band names and stuff, but I don't necessarily need them to be super serious. Like I think all of the bands I've ever been a part of have apart from one, have had kind of jokey backgrounds to their bands. Like my old prog metal band that with the pianist and everything was called Daedra, which is a reference to Skyrim and like the Elder Scrolls games. So yeah, I've mostly had that sort of thing. And like one of my first musical projects was called Narcoleptic Chainsaw Juggler, because the idea of someone falling asleep while juggling chainsaws sounded pretty fucking funny to like
Sounds
15-year-old
dangerous.
me. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So is this your first like musical release, like first CD album being out?
So, like in terms of a proper release that had like actual promotion around it and everything, yeah. But about 10 years ago, I released an acoustic demo or EP or something, which basically I'd been playing some fingerstyle acoustic stuff at like open mic nights and that sort of thing. And a friend of mine was doing audio engineering at school, and he had to record basically acoustic guitar for a project. And he invited me in. We recorded 4 or 5 songs or something. And I released it on Bandcamp for free. I wasn't actually even allowed to charge for it because I got the recording for free through the school. That was some rule. And I didn't really know what to do with it back then. Like I didn't really know what to do. And I kind of, at the time especially, was feeling like it wasn't quite good enough. I was really stuck in my own head about like anxiety and perfectionism. So I was kind of like, oh, it needs to be better. I'm going to do something better, and then I'm going to hype that up. But then I just got stuck in a loop of nothing was ever good enough. But funnily enough, I've had a couple people reach out through the years that EP or demo really resonated with, which is a really pleasant surprise. But no, in the years between that, it's just been I've had a pretty disastrous run of both bands where we just can't seem to get the right members together in a room, or I'll fully admit my own sort of self-sabotaging behavior has also been a big factor in not getting shit done.
Yeah. I've had issues having to work with other people too. So I assume that that's just why you decided to say fuck it and we're going to do our own thing then.
Yeah, basically, like I think it's a combination of struggling to find the right people to work with in terms of fitting together musically and as personalities and everything. And also, I guess it also plays a part that I've been moving between countries a lot for the past few years. Like since 2015, I've lived in 4 or 5 different countries, and that doesn't really give you the space to kind of settle in one place and actually start something that'll take time to get off the ground. So just under a year ago, like we're talking like next week is probably the year anniversary of me moving to Sweden, where I live now. When we moved here, I kind of went, okay, one of the things I really want to have is just like a room that's both a home office for my actual like day job, but I really want to make that into like a little studio space where I can have, studio monitors. I can have kind of like a vocal booth. So like over there, there's basically like a small walk-in closet that I've just made into a makeshift vocal booth. And I wanted to just set this up. So once we moved here, I started like looking into all the gear I would need and started kind of to freshen up on the skills that I started building years and years ago when I first started looking into audio engineering. But then after, a few months of sort of getting everything set up and learning some stuff, demoing just like random ideas and getting feedback from friends, I decided relatively early this year, I was just like, cool, I'm just going to set myself a deadline to finish something by the middle of the year. It has to have like realistic expectations in terms of it has to be something I can do on my own with the gear I have, with the time that I have. So no massive layers of loads of VSTs or anything. It was like, and that was kind of where I went back to the roots of actually where Kilprez, the side project, came from. Something I could get done, get out there, like guitar, bass, and drums. And I actually tried to keep that mindset of like, I'm not going to have the like wall of sound guitar setup. I'm not going to have massive amounts of harmonies in different parts. Like I wanted it to feel almost stripped back in that way in terms of the songwriting, because that's way outside of my comfort zone, because I do tend to layer shit a lot. But it was actually really freeing to both go, okay, I just need to have something finished by this date. And whether that's a 4 or 5 song EP or a 12 song LP or whatever, I ended up in the middle there with 8. I was like, shit, I just need to keep myself accountable, and actually got some external accountability in the part where I spoke to the guys over at Call Me Armageddon. They were releasing this compilation that I know the Sound That Ends Creation was on as well. Mm-hmm. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to sign up to have a single on there, and I'm going to need to have a single by the 1st of July. And if I'm going to have a single, I better have, an album ready for pre-order. I better have some merch designs. I better have this. And suddenly it was like, cool, I just need to project manage the shit out of this.
Hell yeah, man. So, Alex, an awesome guy from Call Me Armageddon.
Oh, yeah.
Dude deserves a little bit more credit for things he's doing. Since you brought it up, let's get into the album a little bit. I'm sure you're getting a lot of comparisons to Between the Buried and Me. Like, you're talking about it's all stripped back and stuff. I would not call this stripped back. This is very much like Between the Buried and Me, like crazy progressive stuff from like back in the MySpace days. Your screams actually almost sound exactly like Tommy's on Alaska. Like, whenever I was hearing it, it's crazy how similar it is. What are some of the other influences going into this?
So I would definitely say like the big 3-4 bands like would be Between the Buried and Me, Sixth, Number 12 Looks Like You, and actually See You Next Tuesday was something I was listening to a lot when I was working on this album. And to be honest, it was a little bit tough to define like the influences of the album, because I'm really nitpicky when it comes to like FFO descriptions. And I'll often find myself grumbling like an old man when I see something labeled like for fans of Psyopus or Dillinger Escape Plan. And I'm like, dude threw in some clean guitar and you're calling it jazzy? Fuck off. Because like 9 times out of 10, an FFO with Psyopus in it is just flat out wrong. Like I sometimes want to message people and be like, what did you hear there? Like, and I'm not saying that to diss any of those bands, because there's a lot of good bands that have been called out like that. It's just that almost no one sounds like Psyopus. Right. And it actually made me laugh out loud when I saw the first person compare Kilprez to Psyopus, because like 2 days earlier, I'd been on another podcast going on about this. Like, no one sounds like Psyopus, man. They're unique. And then someone goes, "You're a bit of Psyopus in there." And then an avalanche of people saying that came in, and I was like, yeah, stung by my own hubris, I guess. But I intentionally didn't include them and Dillinger for that exact reason. But both of them are also huge influences on me throughout the years, and like especially with Dillinger and Psyopus, I just think their names are thrown around a lot, that it's kind of getting to a point where it's like people saying all metal music sounds like Metallica. It's like it doesn't really say anything anymore.
That's true. That's true. To be fair, you do have some like Psyopus sounds coming out whenever you're doing like all the tapping and stuff like that. That's kind of what I was thinking. But yeah, I even get compared to Psyopus now. Like back in the day, I was a little bit more apparent, but now I'm definitely not. So yeah, like that does get thrown around. I would also think that the getting FFOs wrong and stuff comes back to like when you used to run a blog. So what blog were you running?
So my first blog was called Daedric Influence, and funnily enough, because I mentioned the prog metal band Daedra, that's both referencing Elder Scrolls. And originally, Daedric Influence was supposed to be a music and video game blog. So the very first few blogs were kind of split between. But then I was kind of writing for it, and then I didn't really do much. And then there was this festival in the UK called the UK Tech Metal Festival, or just Tech Fest for short. And Sixth were playing there as like a comeback after having been like dormant for almost a decade or something. And I was like, shit, I need to go to this festival and just like book tickets immediately to fly out to the UK. And it's the stupidest thing. Suddenly I started, and this is where like ADHD and anxiety comes in. Suddenly I was like, shit, like if I need to get from the campsite, I'll need to have a phone to be able to call a taxi or something. How do you like charge your phone at a festival? I'd never been to a festival before. So I asked on their Facebook page, like, hey, is there any access to like electrical outlets if you need to charge equipment? And they said, oh, sorry, only in the press room, like because people need to charge their cameras and shit. And I was like, okay. I wrote to them, and literally I was so blunt and straightforward. I was like, look, I've got this blog. It doesn't have a lot of readers. It's not that big, but I'm really trying to grow it, and it would be fucking sick if I could cover this festival. And then I didn't hear back. And then I just show up to the festival, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm picking up my tickets. And they just hand me the press passes. And I was like, wait, what? So
easy.
I end up like camping with all the bands, end up hanging out with a bunch of like people whose blogs I'd read, ended up hanging out with like the guys from Sixth and Aliases and like Vildhjarta and stuff. And actually managed to get like some cool kind of, it sounds silly to say, but like exclusive scoops. Like I think my blog was one of the first ones to mention that Buster from Humanity's Last Breath was now the drummer for Vildhjarta. And suddenly the blog just kind of blew up, and I got a bunch of readers and was asked to join The Monolith, which was another UK blog at the time, like a year later or so. And
I
actually
remember
moved to the UK. And started actually writing for them a lot. But then I don't know, I guess I kind of fell out of love with the blogosphere there for a while, and ended up kind of turning my attention on other projects. But it was really good fun because I got to know some really cool people, and actually got an idea of, I actually think a lot of what I learned there helped me realize how to approach releasing an album, which were some of the skills I definitely didn't have when I did that acoustic thing, where I was like, do I just like mail like burnt CDs out? What the fuck do I do?
Yeah, I have no idea how to do an acoustic one either. Like it'd be a completely different process for metal too. So yeah, I would have no idea if I was in your shoes.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's a good point. Like if I'm going to do like a reissue of it or something, like I don't know any acoustic blogs. I don't follow like the cast that acousts creation. I don't know.
Nice. That's gonna be the spinoff. Podcast.
Yeah. Or if you want it to be entirely fingerstyle acoustic, it could be the cast that fingers creation.
Nice.
Just an idea.
Nice. No, it's gonna be my Pornhub ripoff. That's gonna be coming. So do you write any more for blogs and stuff, like maybe the occasional article?
Not really. Like I was approached, actually, funnily enough, by sort of a lifestyle blog recently about writing for them. I don't know if I'll do it, but I'll see what happens. But
what kind of lifestyle? You don't have to say the name of it.
So it's basically within sort of I guess the queer community and sort of that entire space. And I guess, sort of talking towards marginalized groups and offering ideas and news to those people. So it would be really cool. And it's definitely like an area that would be a passion project of mine to participate in. But I tend to get overly excited about way too many things and try to stretch myself thin. And part of what I'm doing now is like, okay, focus on a little bit fewer things. And like, now that I've got a ball rolling of like getting music out, I'm going to try and continue that. But if I can do both, I'll do both. But I actually get a lot of my, I guess, my writing sort of, my writing rocks off, if you will, through my day job, because I actually work in marketing. So I write a lot of marketing material for technology companies, and help them with sort of the storytelling. And I often say that sort of my sweet spot is taking technology that's not sexy at all, that sounds like the most boring shit ever, and trying to make it sound exciting. Because that's a fun little challenge.
What's the most boring thing you've had to pump up before?
I would say, I would probably have to say networks that are powered by microwave antennas.
Huh. Yeah? That'd be a tough one.
Yeah, it was good fun, like, and worked with some great people there, but like if it was tough trying to get like find new fresh angles at it. It's like I suddenly felt a whole new level of compassion for people that decide to write classic rock, because I was like, man, this is what it must feel to try to rewrite the same Led Zeppelin song for like the 50 fucking millionth time. So
it's not exactly sexy. It's a pretty wild. So take us back to the beginning. What got you into music? When did you decide I'm going to start writing some music?
So I would say what got me into music was probably when I was like 5 years old, and my brother was listening to Smash by The Offspring, like their second album or something. And I just remember like I'd obviously heard music before, but this was like there was a lot of energy, and like they were pissed off at the system and shit. And I was like, yeah, this is really fun. And then a couple years later, they released Ixnay on the Ombre, and they had all these songs basically about like hating school and hating the jocks, which now looking back, those dudes were probably heading towards 30. And now I'm kind of like, dude,
that's weird.
That's a bit weird. But back then I was like, yeah, man, fuck school. But then I guess the anxiety bit was already starting there, because like anytime I'd think about starting to play an instrument, I was like, oh, I'd probably just give up. I'll probably not have the like patience for this. But then around 14, 15, a friend of mine who was studying guitar and like was taking formal lessons, I came over to his place, and he was playing like Metallica's version of Whiskey in the Jar. And I was watching him play it, and when he finished, I was like, man, how do you even know where to put your fingers? How do you know, like, how do you memorize this? Because like, how do you look at a piece of paper and then that translates to like where you put your fingers? And I could not wrap my head around it. And instead of trying to explain it in some super like theoretical way, he literally just took off his guitar, handed it to me, sat me down, and he went, put your finger there. And he just put my like finger on the second fret of the A string, and I like strummed, and he went, that's E minor. Just move that shit around. I'm gonna grab a glass of water. And I just like moved my finger around and just listened out to how the notes sounded together. And I was like, this sounds cool. This sounds like off, but kind of cool. This doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound good. This sounds shit. That sounds pretty cool again. And I just kind of played around like that. And suddenly I was like, this kind of makes sense to me in a way that it never had before. And that was like the moment where I went, I could do this. So he actually basically just went, do you want to like just start a band as soon as you have an instrument? So like a couple days after I got my first guitar, I was in like our friend's basement who had just gotten his first drum kit, another friend who had just got his first bass, and this dude who was like the only one who knew what the fuck he was doing. And he was like, I wrote a really simple song for you guys to learn, and just taught us like really simple kind of pop punky song, broke it down into the bare basics for us. And we played that song in like one Metallica cover fucking every day for like 6 months. And like the band did nothing, but it definitely kind of made me love that feeling of just playing with people and looking around and kind of vibing off each other. And it genuinely like it it was something that no music class could have given me, because it was just this joy of like meeting up with 3 other dudes and just jamming.
Hell yeah, man. I was in a bunch of like bands back in the day as well, and that was always like a big part of it. It's important to get like that feeling off of people sometimes.
Yeah.
So I assume the only like serious one besides the side project, the only other serious one was the prog thing that you were doing.
So I had, I would say, 2 kind of serious ones. So it was the prog one, and then there was one before then, which was, I guess, a different kind of prog. Like I remember someone described us after one of our gigs as Mastodon meets Dream Theater, and we were like, "Holy shit, that's the best comment we could have gotten," because that was definitely what we were listening to at the time. So for better or worse, we got there, and that band was actually like had 2 of those people in like my very first band. We'd all kind of exited our respective other projects that had been frustrating or not really serious, and we got this drummer that was a few years older than us from our school to come in and join. And it was like we were probably 18, 19, and like the drummer was 22. And one day we just all decided, we went into a garage and we were like, should we just not decide what we're going to play and just kind of all plug in and see what happens, like we did back in the day? And we decided basically that like anything we would write as that band would be written on the spot at rehearsal, like during jams. Nothing would be put together outside of practice. And it was basically what killed us, because we played together for a couple of years. And it's like the most stoner way of trying to run a band, because like nothing got done. Like we played for like 2 years and we had like 4 finished songs and about 20 cool ideas, where it was like, oh, remember that one riff when we were jamming and it was like like, oh man, can you play that?
The one that was like da 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 da.
Yeah. And then like no, not that one. Remember, like, oh, I think we called it like, and it's like nothing happened. And I remember like near the end of it, I was like, I'm so fucking sick of this. Like, I just want to put something together. And I ended up showing up to practice with like a few of our jams put into songs. And a couple of the other members were like, man, that's not cool. You're trying to like force us into some sort of dictatorship. I was like, no, I just want to get shit done. So when that band broke up was actually when the other prog band started, because I literally went, I can't deal with this. I'm just going to write an album full of shit and then just approach people, be like, I've got an album. Do you want to play it?
Well, that's what I was going to ask, like if that was ever a thing you wanted to do, like we were trying to do with like Kilprez, for instance.
So with Daedra, that band, that was literally what I did. I wrote a full album of music, but I didn't really have the capacity, ability, or the gear to like record it. So I would literally just like, I realized that I wanted to have like a violinist on it, a pianist, and I would just basically speak to people that I liked and be like, look, I've got this album. I can show you like MIDI versions of some ideas, and I can talk about the concept, like the story or narrative concept of the album that I had, but I can't really show you much else. But do you want to be part of it? And the really interesting bit was it caused me to kind of think outside the box a little bit, because almost no one that joined the band at first was really like a metal musician. The violinist was a classically trained violinist and choir singer who actually toured with Björk.
Oh.
Our pianist was had been in like brass ensembles and stuff like that, and knew how to play the piano from that. And our vocalist had been in choirs and stuff before, liked metal, but had never been in a band. So it was like a kind of a hodgepodge of people from different backgrounds, but it ended up creating a really nice vibe of just people that got along.
Nice, man. I'll have to check out that stuff. You should send me like recordings sometime. I really want to hear what.
Well, that project is actually like the next big project I'm going to work on now that Kilprez is out of the way, because I've got all that like written, and we started recording the album years ago, but we never finished it because then there were disputes between members, or members moving to different countries. But I guess the benefit of the fact that I wrote the album and I don't really have to have anyone else like present for it. Like, I'd love to get the violinist to still record the violin, because that's always going to be cool. But in general, like I'm going to make it happen, whether it's on my own or with a bunch of other people. But the original vocalist for it is actually the same one that did some guest vocals on the Kilprez album and did all the artwork and merch designs. So
Oh,
That should be
nice.
cool.
Are you gonna call it Kilprez? Or are you gonna call it? I can't pronounce the other name.
I'll probably still call it Daedra just because it does feel like I'm approaching it in a completely different way than Kilprez. So I'll probably keep the two separate because I already have kind of ideas of where I want to take Kilprez next, and it's very much in line with what Patron Saint of Lost Causes is. But I guess, every band likes to say the next album will be the heaviest thing or the most this or most that. I'm just going to say the next album will just be more of everything, like more of everything that was on Patron Saint of Lost Causes, more of everything that wasn't on it. It's just going to be fucking more.
Alrighty. So how do you take just an idea for a song and turn it into a full song for Kilprez?
So for Kilprez, I think, to be honest, I think whatever the project is, I'm very much a big picture kind of thinker when it comes to this sort of thing, where if I start something, I either very quickly have an idea for where I want to take it. I have sort of a vision for the whole thing. It might not be, I know exactly how many parts it's going to be, but more sort of the flow of it. And if I don't have that, it tends to be ideas that kind of get left on the side until I have that. So there
Right.
are songs on the Kilprez album, like Delete the Elite is a perfect example of this, where there's a part in there that I wrote years ago, but I didn't have that vision. So I kind of just left it. And then when I was working on the album, I was playing around with the guitar and I remembered this idea. And suddenly the vision kind of hit me where I went, oh, I know exactly how I want this to be a song. And it's often kind of hard to put into words because it's often these kind of abstract ideas, and it almost becomes like cinematic in my head, where I see it as almost a journey from one place to another. And I remember I actually had a song years ago that I was kind of pitching to that old prog metal band, where I was trying to describe this and it was getting more and more abstract. And the violinist was like, dude, can you just please break it down into something that human beings understand? And I ended up explaining it with Pokemon. And I ended
Okay.
up going through some sort of like, because the violinist was a big Pokemon fan, and actually has a Pikachu tattoo, I think now. And I kind of explained it to her throughout this whole thing. And at some point I said, but now imagine Ash's sadness because Pikachu is missing. And suddenly she stops me and goes, this song will forever be referred to now at practices as Pikachu is missing. And I think my old guitar pro for it is still called Pikachu is missing. So I think, yeah, it's one of these things where I tend to go in with sort of that vision for a feeling, and then it kind of just goes from there. Often it flows really easily and kind of just goes really quickly into like what I want next and what I want next. But sometimes I'll find that there's a gap where I'm like, I don't quite know how to go from this place to this place, which again feels very cinematic in a way, where it's kind of like you need to write a character arc from here to here. And as an example, like with the first song in the album, Redundancy of Role, like I absolutely wanted that song to be like a statement of intent to open the album, because if you think about some really cool albums, like every single Dillinger album has that opener that just makes you know that they're not here to fuck around. Like,
Right.
that they come out of the gates blasting. Same thing with like Planetary Duality by The Faceless, where, yeah, within seconds, you're like, yeah, I know, either know I love this or I know I hate this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So like immediately just coming out with like sweeps and fast kind of tech deathy riffs, but with clean vocals on top. I was like, yeah, this is either going to make or break this album for a bunch of people. But then I also wanted this like abrasive heaviness towards the end with, the chugging and the sweeping and everything. And I kind of knew approximately what I wanted, but then it was sort of a matter of then picking up a guitar. And very often, once I have that vision in my head, I very quickly kind of figure out approximately what I want to have. But the process can differ though, because I always like looking into how people write their music, and I like to try what other people's techniques are. And sometimes I just don't get it, but sometimes there'll be parts where I'm like, yeah, this is actually a cool thing to add to my like repertoire. And as an example, like if I'm feeling especially like stuck on not necessarily a specific part, but just I want to write something and I just feel blocked, I'll sometimes just put on like a random drum groove and I'll just groove along to it for a bit until something kind of cool comes in. And then I'm like, okay, if I change the drums a little bit and change the riff, and then suddenly I end up with something that isn't close to what I started with, but it kind of gets the juices flowing. And I think that's, yeah, it's a nice way of just getting out of that funk.
Yeah, it's super important to like change up the way that you approach things whenever you're writing stuff. That way, it all doesn't sound like the same. And you did a good job at making things not sound the same on here. You have a huge like range of like different sounds and styles and stuff. So it seemed to work out pretty well for you.
Well, appreciate that. Oh no, I was just gonna say I appreciate that. And one other thing maybe as well that I actually had, so Julian, who did the guest vocals on Colony Collapse on one or two parts there. One thing that I remember him commenting on with my songwriting a few years back was actually that he was kind of wondering how I made things feel cohesive rather than like a riff salad of sorts. And it's one of these things where I think when you're so deep into your own thing, some things are really obvious to you, but not to others. And to me, for example, like there's a lot of things throughout the album that are basically just like modular variations of previous things. So like in the title track, like Pedro Saint of Lost Causes, that last jazzy bit, like the first few notes of the sort of jazzy solo there are literally just something that kind of follows the same basic note structure of a really chromatic mathcore riff earlier in the song, but it isn't as obvious when you weren't there sitting there going, hey, this works as a jazz lick as well.
So how long did it take to actually write this, record it, and master it? Because you did the mixing and mastering and all that stuff as well. So yeah, how long from start from the project to finish of the project?
Probably about 4 or 5 months.
Damn, dude, that's really short.
Yeah, I wanted to be really aggressive with my deadline. So yeah, it didn't feel as short as it sounds though, because I was like hyper fixated on this thing. But I kind of need it to be, because like I said, I've gotten so stuck in that perfectionist mindset in the past of it's done when it's done or something. And in sort of the time from the last time I was in a full-on band until now, I've done a lot of different projects and stuff, both for my own work and for other creative projects, where I realized that it's done when it's done can be a really helpful way to give yourself space, but it's a horrible way to get shit done.
Right.
And I actually started as part of sort of an entrepreneurial project. I posted videos every day on LinkedIn for a couple of years to talk about the progress I was making, the projects I was working on. And that, I think, really helped me get into the right state of mind, because I basically went, I'm going to start posting videos. And then I recorded my first one. I was like, I think I'm just going to do this every day. This was really easy to just get done, because I find it pretty easy to look into a camera and talk. And I like the process of editing shit. So just started doing that. And somehow that feeling of being like, no one else is keeping me to this, but I told myself I'm going to do this daily, so I better do it daily. And taking that sort of cadence into the music side of things, I always thought would kind of kill the creativity.
Yeah.
I always thought it would kind of force you down an avenue of like starting to I used to joke when I ran the blog, I had this reference where I said bands started writing their Wikipedia descriptions. Like when you hear a band that's so obviously just fulfilling like the last album in their contract that they're like, what do we sound like again? Read the Wikipedia description. Yeah, breakdowns, we have that. Clean sung choruses. Yeah, cool. Like this is an album by us. Yeah, cool. And I always thought that would kind of happen, but with this project, at least, I think I just needed to get it out of my system and get shit done. And that's why I said kind of project managing the shit out of it, because literally when I decided on that line, I was like, cool. I made an Excel spreadsheet of like the rough song ideas I had or the topics I wanted to talk about, like lyrically. I was like, cool, what are some of the blogs that I want to reach out to? What are the podcasts I want to talk to when it comes out? How long does it take me to record a song once it's written? How long does it take me to do this? And to be honest, I kind of had to finish a song first in order to set that that sort of scope. So the first song that I finished for the album was actually kind of a big moment for me, because I finished it, I like recorded it, I did a demo sort of mix of it, and I was like, shit, I actually did it. Like, there's a song here with guitar, bass, and like drums and vocals and shit, and I made it.
It's that moment of, oh shit, this is real. This is happening.
Yeah. And I was like, cool. Okay, this took me approximately this long, but it's like, it's a short song, so let's look at it this way. And I basically went, okay, I need to finish like instrumentally about one song per week over this period, to then like get started on vocals, get one to finish, like, and kind of get the instrumentation down. And then also because I hadn't really done like heavy vocals for a long time, and so I knew I needed some time to kind of get back into it, and also just feel comfortable standing in a closet with headphones on and screaming. So yeah, it's
You live by yourself, or do you have roommates and stuff?
Oh, so I live with my wife. So
it's not that embarrassing. I mean, she can hear you like screaming on the side of the house, probably.
Oh yeah, that's like and you know, so funnily enough, like, full disclosure, just so I don't get accused of nepotism here, she's also the one that did all the designs and like did some guest vocals.
I was wondering if that was someone that if that was your wife doing it. Is that Theory?
Yeah, Theory, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so we've collaborated on so much stuff. Like, we've been together since 2006. So like, next year I will literally have been with her half my life.
That's insane, man. That's so cool that y'all are able to stay together that long. So is this the first time you've recorded, mixed, and mastered something?
It is, yeah.
Nice, dude. You did really good for your first time. Like, holy shit. I don't know if you've ever heard like my first album. Garbage. Just throw it in the garbage. Yours is really good. Like, seriously, if you have like no experience doing this too, like, Jesus Christ, you did really good.
Well, so I didn't have any, like, I guess, real experience, but I got, like, years and years ago, I got one of those old like M boxes, the blue ones with the gray knobs, like probably back in like 2007, 2008. And it came with like a light version of Pro Tools, which really gave me a profound hatred of Pro Tools. I then fell in love with Reaper.
I use Reaper too. It's awesome.
Yeah. But so I kind of like, I remember back then I was like, oh, I'm really going to get into this. And I fancied myself like the next fucking Devin Townsend or something. And then I realized I didn't know what any of that shit did. And back then there wasn't as much wealth of like tutorial content on YouTube, and like all this stuff wasn't as accessible, or at least if it wasn't to like 17-year-old me. So I ended up I did some demos of stuff back then that, like, I wouldn't even say they were mixed. They were just recorded. It was just like, I plugged my guitar in, put some preset on Amplitube or something, and some drum kit from hell or something that I'd probably pirated or gotten from a friend or something, and just went, cool, this is something. So then I didn't do much about it for years. And I think, again, it was that it was sort of the Devin Townsend or nothing. Like, it had to be something incredible. But as obvious as it is in hindsight, of course, the first thing wasn't going to be perfect. Of course, you need to commit to something, get it out there, and then go, next time I'm going to do this better or that better. And you start reflecting. And I even noticed it just during the time of making this album. Like, the first song in the first version ended up sounding so different to how anything sounded on the final version of it, because I learned as I went along. And,
right,
you know, anytime I ran into an issue, it was like, cool, do I have the tools to fix this? And if I didn't, it was like, cool, where's a free or affordable tool to do this? And yeah, kind of building up a library. And like, I wouldn't say I skimped a lot on like not getting anything that costed anything, but I did kind of look at it as, what do I truly need versus what do I want? And then admittedly, I did get some of the stuff I just wanted, because, you know, anytime I ran into an issue, it was like, cool, do I have the tools to fix this? And if I didn't, it was like, cool, where's a free or affordable tool to do this? cool shit, you know?
Yeah.
But largely it was like, what do I need that's going to help me, not just with this one, but like to make the next one and the next one, and then kind of build out from there.
Right. A lot of the plugins and stuff that they sell online aren't even worth getting. So you're not missing out on a lot. You really just need like a couple basics to get things done. If you're anything like me, you took like forever with the mixing and mastering process. I know for me, like I ended up spending like a month just like tweaking things, because you could like say it's done, then the next day you wake up and you're like, oh, let's change this up a little bit, and take it out to your car, and then it doesn't sound right, and you're like, let's mess with it a little bit more. So was that the same with you? Did you just spend endless hours in this torturous hell of trying to make a mix sound good?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And my wife will attest to this, because anytime I finished like the final version 8, version 2, final,
the names just get
final,
longer and longer on the files. Yeah.
Anytime I finish that, it's like, cool, it sounds good on like my studio headphones, it sounds good on the monitors. Okay, let's try it on the Bluetooth speaker, let's try it on earbuds. Then it's like, oh, the Bluetooth speaker has the bass a little bit too massive. Yeah, no, let's back to the drawing board. So yeah, no, absolutely. And I knew that was going to be the case, which is like, I kind of worked that into the sort of project management bit, where I was like, yeah, I know I need to commit to certain things, and I am fighting my perfectionism, but like, I'm not a fucking saint. I know I'm going to fall into that trap one way or another. So I definitely, I factored that in. But
how long do you think it took you to get it right?
Probably a month and a half, maybe a little bit more. Because I was kind of, one of the things that I'll definitely do a little bit different next time is, in this one, one of the mistakes I made was there was too much overlap between sort of the engineering and mixing part of it. And I realized that I kind of have to next time have sort of the different hats kind of more separate. I need to record it, get good takes, get decent sounds, then move on to like sleep on it and mix it, and then sleep on it. Because I think I was too busy with like, I'd get a nice take and then I'd try to make that take sound good, if you know what I mean. Like I'd get stuck in the wrong details at the wrong times. But and I don't know if you had this when mixing and mastering, but I actually had a really nice feeling one day where I went, you know what? I actually kind of don't want to work on it anymore. And it was weird. It was kind of like, it wasn't that I was like, oh, I'm sick of the songs, or I'm sick of this. It was like, I know it probably could get better,
but you got to say stop at some point.
Yeah, you got to commit, and that was a really nice feeling to have, because I've been a part of a lot of creative ventures in different ways. Like I've worked in the theater, I do a lot of public speaking. Well, not now because the world's fucked with a pandemic, but you know what you're gonna do. But I edit a lot. Like when I do stuff, I'll write something and then it ends up with a lot of variations. However, it's funny with writing, not musically, but writing. I got into a habit a lot earlier of, don't edit while you write. And that was something I needed to get into more of a habit on with, don't mix while you record, basically. At least for me, I found that further I got into it, that definitely helped. And I think I think also the mindset that I go in with it, like I've never understood bands that say, oh yeah, we wrote like 25 songs for this eight strong album and just threw out like the worst 15 or something. I'm always like, how? What? Why? I've never really identified with that bit. Like
that's exactly what I did on meme streams and flying machines.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying that's a wrong way, just to be clear. I've never really identified with it, because for me, like, if I don't feel like that a song is like as good as all the others, I'll probably just not finish it. I'll probably just be like, this can be scraps for later.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of park it to the side. So, which I guess, like now saying it out loud, is basically the same process. I just abandoned it a little bit earlier.
So, you were saying that you had two guests. I can't pronounce her name. I'm sorry. Your wife, Thiddy.
Yeah, theory. And, it's basically like the word theory.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you also had Julian Perry doing guest vocals.
Yeah.
Who's Julian? Just a friend of yours?
So yeah, so Julian's a
Oh, he
great
was
dude.
from the
So
other band you were talking about, right? Was that the
actually
case?
no.
Oh, okay.
So Julian, actually, though I know him through the bassist in that band. So Julian is he's half English, half Icelandic. We lived in the same. Well, I think we lived in the same town, but by the time I got to know him, we didn't. So, but that doesn't matter. But basically, yeah, we got to know each other. We were sort of part of the metal scene back in Iceland, which is very small. And we sort of ran into each other here and there, but I wouldn't say we were ever close back then. And then he called me up one day and was like, dude, there's this guy who's coming to my sort of home studio to record this EP. And he really wants some like sick guest guitar solos and stuff on it. And I told him that he should talk to you. And I was like, man, that's sick. I'm really really happy. And he invites me over, and it was Daniel, who's actually, do you know Cult of Lilith? They
I've
released
heard the
their
name.
like
I don't think I've ever
debut
listened to
album
them.
through Nuclear Blast last year. Mara, absolutely killer, like baroque death metal shit. So basically, he was starting Cult of Lilith back then and was recording his debut EP. So we meet up. I ended up recording 2 guest guitar solos for the EP, although one of them, there was some problem with it, and I moved out of the country before we had a chance to fix it, which was a little bit shit. And I also arranged some, like, did some piano and like string stuff for the EP. And like, if I hadn't been moving away, I probably would have tried to like join him in that full time, because that dude is a riff machine and the stuff that he writes is just phenomenal. But kind of after working with Julian around that, I think we just kind of started really bonding after that and started talking. And Julian actually moved to Berlin, where he lives now, to go study audio engineering at a school where I'd been planning to go study audio engineering years before, but never did. And so when I started working on this project, he was actually an incredibly helpful source of information, of guiding me towards this. And it's one of these things where I fully realized that he could have done a much better job than me of mixing and mastering this. And like, he would have done it in a heartbeat, because he's an incredibly talented audio engineer. But I really wanted to learn it by myself, because I wanted this sort of self-sustaining thing where I could
Right.
work on it on my own, control every aspect of it. And because I knew I wanted to do more albums, and I know I want to be able to kind of do it at my own pace. And that was really helpful. But, you know, he gets a massive shout out for not just the guest vocals, but yeah, sort of pointing me in the right direction, giving me really good advice anytime I'd send him a demo at like 3 a.m. He like very quickly listened to the next day and be like, oh, just, you know, put this up there, or like check these frequencies. And immediately my mix would suddenly be a lot better. And it really taught me to hear certain things that I wouldn't have heard without his guidance. So massive shout out to Julian.
Nice. Shout out to Julian. Uh, your wife, Thiddy. Did I get it right? Thiddy? Hey,
Yeah,
there we go.
absolutely.
Also did the artwork. We got up on screen now. What exactly is going on with this?
So it's kind of a funny story, because I didn't really know what I wanted for the artwork, but I knew I wanted her to do it. And that's a really difficult place to put an artist into, because she was like, just, do you have any idea? Do you have any clue? And I was like, no. And the only thing I knew, actually, the first thing I chose was the sort of tentacle girl that's on the pink shirts that I released. I actually have a sticker here with the design on it, and because she'd done that a while back, completely unrelated to this, and I was like, man, I want that, and I want it on a pink shirt. It's going to be MySpace as shit. Love it. But somehow I didn't really feel like it fit the album cover. And then I did what I actually did back when I published a book years ago, and I got her to do illustrations for it. I just asked for permission to like rifle through her sketchbooks, basically. So I started looking through all these, like some finished ideas, some sketches and unfinished stuff. And I came across one that I just instantly clicked with. And I loved this, like, person tearing itself open and having all this like space inside of it, and fire for a head. And I was like, this is such a perfect like almost like an analogy for what the album is all about, like having all this like caring empathy inside of you, but it coming out as rage because the world sucks so fucking much.
Ooh, I like that.
And
That's really cool. Okay.
and so I basically just showed her the sketch and I was like, I don't know when you did this, but can you like do a new version of this? And basically just asked for it to be framed in like a circle and asked for a couple things. And yeah, she basically took this sketch, which she started like years and years ago, and actually made a finished piece of artwork from it that I just loved and felt like it really, yeah, again, captured the essence. And I ended up kind of referring back to it in lyrics on the title track, in terms of like, it's time to tear yourself open and see if you have a fucking heart. Because I actually ended up, yeah, kind of reverse engineering that into the song, because I was like, I like having that reference back to this kind of tearing yourself open kind of thing.
Oh, that's sick, man. I like the way that it looks. Why did you choose a circle?
100% honestly, because it was in the sketch already, and I liked the way that it framed it.
Oh, okay.
Because the sketch, I think, because I think she drew it back when she was working on this kind of comic book-esque project, where it wasn't really a comic book, but it was a story told where like the bits of the story happened in circles on pages, and then the background was around the circles was like trees and stuff, the nature where the story was happening. And it was a really cool way of framing the story. And I think it was just one of these stylistic things that she was experimenting with at the time. And yeah, I guess because I fell in love with the artwork in that format, I kind of started envisioning it with like the logo above. I immediately knew I didn't want the album title on the front cover. But you know, it's going to be on the back cover of the CD and on the spine and everything. But I just wanted like clear, just like the logo and that artwork, and done.
Nice. Well, I think it looks. So we got a random question here. We ask everybody, what do you put on your hot dogs?
So first, I guess what kind of hot dog I eat would be a valid answer, just because I'm a vegetarian, so veggie dogs would have to be it.
I would say we get that about half the time, actually. We get a lot of vegetarians on here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I imagine, yeah, hardcore and mathcore is kind of it's kind of where that's at. And actually, like that was probably my introduction to that world. Like when I was, I don't know, 13, 14, going to one of my first hardcore gigs, there was this animal rights activism group called Voice of the Voiceless that was like handing out pamphlets. And I just remember thinking, I'd love to be a vegetarian, but I just don't know how. Like, do you eat salads? Like, what
Dude, that's kind of where I'm at, actually.
Yeah. And I kind of struggled with that because I grew up in a very meat-heavy family and in a very meat-heavy country. But as soon as I kind of moved away from home, I think it was only like a year until I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to drop meat, because found a bunch of great alternatives and found ways to cook the stuff that I loved just with other stuff. But back to the hot dog question, veggie propaganda out of the way. So I tend to put, usually spicy ketchup, mustard, this thing that is called remoulade, but it's not what Americans call remoulade. It's not that fancy sauce that Gordon Ramsay puts on shit. It's this like yellow kind of relishy thing. Usually both these fried onions that are like really crispy, which is, I think, quite a Nordic thing. I haven't really seen it.
Oh, we get them in the US.
Yeah,
there's like tens of them.
Okay, cool. And then so raw onions, fried onions. Yeah,
big onion ketchup lover.
Yeah, I think onions make pretty much everything better, to be honest. Like,
okay.
Food wise, I'll just say that. Like, if someone tries to hand me like ice cream with onion in it,
I was gonna ask, like, I don't think it really works with desserts, but
no. Although, like, the dudes from Candlemass, that like doom metal band, they apparently run this restaurant here in Stockholm that I went to a couple times. It's called Garlic and Shots, and they put garlic in literally everything. Like, you'll get beer with garlic in it, you'll get dessert with garlic in it, and I tried their garlic ice cream, and it's like garlic and caramel or something, and it was surprisingly nice. Like, I didn't expect it. I just tried it kind of as a joke, but no, it was nice. Very
That's interesting.
Though.
The band runs their own restaurant. That's crazy.
Yeah, I guess like or at least that's what I heard, and it's a very sort of old school metal looking place, so it kind of makes sense.
Nice. And I guess they got a really good deal on a bunch of garlic. Have to get rid of it, you know.
Yeah, I guess maybe maybe it's a supply issue. They meant to do something completely different, then someone just showed up with like a fuck ton of garlic, and they were like, "Well, when life hands you garlic."
You make garlic aid.
Yeah, exactly.
So, ever plan on bringing this to the stage?
Kilprez. Well, to be honest, I'd love to, and I actually thought about this where I was like, what would I do? And what I mean by that is like, I definitely did not write any of this with the idea in mind that I'd be able to play it and do the vocals simultaneously. Like through enough practice, I'm sure I could, but I'm like, would I just want to do the vocals? Because I feel like that's the bit that's hardest to replicate the feel of. It's the most human sounding element. So like if someone else were to play my guitar parts, there's going to be some differentiation, but like live, you don't really end up giving that much of a shit about it, I guess, for most people, because there's not a lot of like soulful guitar solos on this album.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know. I've considered it.
Well, there's a lot of people that like lead bands and stuff like that that actually write all the music, but they're just the vocalists. So
yeah,
like it's a thing that happens.
And I quite like that idea, just because I like the idea of just jumping around on stage, not attached to anything, and just screaming my heart out. That sounds pretty fun, and just like stage diving and shit. Because that's harder to do when focusing on all the riffs and leads and shit. But no, I'd love it, but I wouldn't say it's a priority. Like right now, I want to get more music out, and I've had some great gigs with past bands and stuff, and was actually this close to being on a US tour, supporting quite a cool band a few years ago with a project I was in. But I don't know. I think right now I'm really excited to get more music out and see kind of what happens, because I've tried I know we've spoken about this before, but I've tried the sort of solo artist with a backing track kind of thing live.
Oh yeah,
and and like it can be fun, but it's also like it does miss that raw energy of like being able to look back at your drummer and be like, hell yeah, man, nailed that fucking fill.
Yeah, you just need to look back at your computer and you're like, hell yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah, man. Like that iPod did a hell of a job playing that fucking MP3.
What project were you in that was like about to support on a tour?
So they're called Dinfari. So they're this Icelandic black metal band, and I was never a full member. So it's basically the band is just two dudes, or at least they were back then. I'm not sure if the others have been promoted to full member yet. But it was just two guys who wrote everything and recorded the albums. But when they wanted to play live, they needed people on board, and they knew me from my other band I was in at the time, and basically asked me if I was willing to help them with a few gigs, and then a few gigs turned into a few years. So, we played some festivals, played around. And then in 2014, 15, something like that, they got an offer to go on a US and Canadian tour supporting Nagura Bunget. And
I have no idea who that is.
They are, shit, I can't remember if they're like Romanian or something. They're like from that part of the world. If on the off chance that anyone from that band ever watches this episode, I'm very sorry that I cannot remember your exact place of origin. No, so, and they actually went on the tour, but I was at like the most literal crossroad of my life at that point, because I was studying film at a university and working part-time. And my wife had just moved to the UK to go to Arts University. And I was sitting there going, I could aim to move to, again, be in the same country as her, because long distance sucks. I could drop everything and go on a tour playing music that, while I loved those dudes, it's not my music. Like, frankly speaking, like I'd be playing something someone else wrote, which just didn't have me as excited. It would be an amazing adventure, but I was still like, or I could do none of that and continue studying film. Studying film made me feel like I was studying my way into unemployment, so I kind of backed out of that. So then the two options remained, and yeah, I ended up choosing to get married and move away from Iceland, which, like, I can't deny that there were times, like, for those first couple months where I was like fighting to find a job and a place to live in a new country, and I was seeing their pictures, like checking out the Grand Canyon, playing St. Vitus in New York or something, and like it was sometimes hard not to be like, shit. Did
Yeah,
I
like
just make
what
like
if?
should I have like waited for another year? But to be honest, like I don't have any regrets about that. Like it
Right.
would have been a one hell of a tour, but at the same time, I would have come back and I would have been in the same place. I would have had to just go probably back to that job. It's not like, full-time black metal musician is really an option for many people. So yeah, and I ended up, landing a job that got me into a career that led me to where I am now. So, I can't complain.
Yeah, in a couple of years, you'll be a full-time mathcore musician, so it's all good, man.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the plan,
That's where
sponsored
the
by
money's
Elon
at.
Musk or
Like,
something.
everybody
Yeah.
knows if you want to make some money, you play a bunch of panic chords. Like, that's
Yeah.
just
Well, actually, I've heard that the big money's in cyber grind these days, but it's
true.
like Bitcoin. It goes up and down.
So we're running a little short on time, but real quickly, what's the craziest live story you have? Because you played in a bunch of bands, played a lot of shows.
Yeah. Probably, like, I don't know if it's the craziest, but it's definitely like the stupidest or weirdest series of events where we were supposed to play this German bar, or a bar called the German Bar, actually, to be
The
precise.
German bar.
Yeah, and we booked this band from like another town to come and open the gig. Well, they wanted to open the gig so they could fuck off home early because they had a long drive. And we'd like promoted this to everyone. We were like debuting a new lineup for a band, and like friends and family and coworkers were coming. And then we get to the venue and they go, "Oh shit, was that tonight?" And we're like, "What?" And they were like, "Oh, sorry, we double booked. Do you mind if your show starts a little bit later?" We're like, how late we talking? He was like, "Oh, maybe like 1 a.m." And we were sat there like, what the fuck do we do? Like, this band is driving like across the country to come play here. Do we tell them to turn around? We were like, no, we can't. This, like, we've invested too much. We were like, okay, we'll just bite the bullet and play a stupid like 1 a.m. show. And there were three bands, and it was like my old prog band, and I was pulling double duty because I was also playing with that black metal band. So the out of towners come in, and the show before us is like running over, and then finally we get to go on stage, and we don't really get a chance to sound check because we're like, we just need to like set up and go. And the out of towners, in classic local band tradition, go, "Oh yeah, we didn't really bring like amps or anything. Can we use your stuff?" And I was like, "Man, okay, I've got like marks on my amp for like settings. Could you just like put it back to those settings when you're done? Because like we don't really have time to sound check, and I really don't want to have to start by messing those up." And the guy's like, yeah, no problem. And then it looks like the dude just went like this across all the buttons on my amp because it was just everything at 10. And they play this show to almost no fanfare, where they're just like screaming and playing loud, and a bunch of people are just kind of standing around unimpressed. It's like a mix of the people that showed up early enough, which is almost no one, and the people that are left over from the previous gig, which was some sort of like indie pop reggae kind of thing. And then they finish and go. So my prog band gets on stage, and we realize that there's only one microphone. And we're like, dude, we literally called ahead and asked if you had enough microphones, because there are like three people singing. And they went, "Oh, we've got a box of microphones there." And they had just a bunch of drum mics. And so I was like, shit, there's a venue across the street. I went over there and was like, can I please like borrow 2 mics? Because we're playing a gig over there. And I had to leave my credit card there for them to let me take the mics. So I run back over with the mics. We start playing, and like shit just keeps going wrong, but we fight through it. And then the black metal band gets on stage at like 3:30 or 4 a.m. Like literally no one's left if they don't have gear on the stage, except for these two really, really drunk dudes who keep yelling during the quiet parts of the songs in German at us. And eventually the drummer from my band comes up to the stage and he goes, guys, it's getting a bit tragic here. Like, should we just cut our losses and like fucking go home? Like, those two dudes are probably not enjoying this, and you're probably not enjoying them yelling at you in German. Should we just like call it a night? So the Johan, the lead singer in the black metal band, just goes, "Hey, we're gonna play like a 3-minute version of a 12-minute song. Enjoy." So we play like one part of a really long song of theirs, and then end it, and everyone just feels really broken. Goes home. We realize that the place across the street is closed, so I can't get my card back, and I'm just stuck with these two microphones. And then once we get home, I suddenly have the realization that no one took the money at the door. So we just left a box of money by the door of this bar and everyone went home. So we charged entry, but no one took the money. And we were like, this was supposed to pay for the gas money for the out-of-towners, and they didn't take it. We didn't take it. There's just a box of money lying on a ground of a floor where drunk dudes yelled at us in German, who have definitely stolen that box.
Right. So you never saw the box then?
So funnily enough, we returned the next day and the box was still laying in the same place. So I guess just no one saw it. So that was good.
Nice.
But man, that was just like, it's not maybe the weirdest thing ever. Like, I did once play a gig at a strip club. Okay. But like the only weird thing about that was the actual venue. Like, nothing else really weird happened.
Right. I played at a strip club around here in Dallas like years ago, and they had like different rooms set up for like different themes and stuff. It was kind of weird. But yeah. So we have our fair share of a strip club around as well. So right now you've got shirts and CDs available over at kilprez.bandcamp.com. Any other like merch in the process? Like, we ever gonna do vinyl and stuff, or?
So vinyl isn't necessarily like massively planned, both because well, right now it didn't make sense. It's a really, like, I did a small print of CDs, small print of T-shirts.
Right, like, you just got started with the project. And
yeah,
stuff,
exactly. So I didn't want to sink money into vinyl that maybe wouldn't sell, because you also have to do it in like a fair bit of bulk, I guess. But more merch, I think definitely. Like, I've got my wife asking me every now and then, like, hey, do you have some ideas of like something we should do on like hoodies or long sleeve shirts? And so yeah, I think definitely more merch. And well, there's always album number 2, so I'll be sure to make some merch then, and who knows, maybe I'll have a reason to make vinyl by then.
Yeah. I am wearing one of the shirts right now. Woo, that out. Pretty sick. Pretty sick
Shout
stuff. Outs. So to wrap things up, what was the last thing you listened to?
Last thing I listened to was Irony is a Death Scene by Dillinger Escape Plan and Mike Patton.
Nice. What about your album of the year?
Album of the year so far is, man, that's tough. It's been a really, really good year.
Right, there's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, but probably my most listened to album of the year is probably split between For Your Health's album and Death Goals.
Nice.
Those two, and they fit perfectly together because they're like similar enough that if I'm in the mood for one, I'm probably in the mood for the other, but they're different enough that they don't just kind of blend in together. So yeah, those two have just been on repeat.
Right, both are big bangers. They're amazing stuff.
Oh yeah, and shout out to the Fall 50 Feet EP as well, just to follow that up as well, because like Twisted World Perspective was like, some people said it came out of nowhere, but like False Accusations was sick as well, but like they really stepped up their game on that one.
Right, I agree. It's a lot better than what they were doing in the past. Not that was ever bad, but yeah. But yeah, that's all I have to talk about. Unless you had something else you want to bring up, or we could just go into the outro.
Yeah, like to be honest, the only thing I'll say is if people dig what I've been doing with Kilprez, like, rest assured it's just the beginning. Like, there's more stuff coming, and probably sooner than you think. Wink, wink, and all that. But yeah, no, I'm just excited, and thanks everyone that supported it, because it's honestly been amazing. Because the worst thing I could have imagined was to release it and then just dead silence. That would have sucked.
Yeah. You seem to do pretty good for your first release.
Yeah, man.
So if you're looking to scratch the itch that early Between the Buried and Me left, you need to check out Kilprez's debut album, Patron Saint of Lost Causes, which came out back in August. You're on Bandcamp, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Oh, yeah, Twitter. You are on Twitter. Well, as your personal one's on Twitter. And all streaming websites. Any other social plugs I'm missing?
No, I think that's it. I'll probably jump into the TikTok cult at some point, but haven't yet.
Alrighty. As for me, drop my channel, follow so you always know when I go live. You can also sub to get access to some to the interviews before they hit YouTube and streaming services, as well as some exclusive emotes. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. YouTube folks, if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like, click the notification bell, don't forget to subscribe. It's a great way to support me for free. Check out my music, The Sound That Ends Creation, at thesoundthatenscreation.bandcamp.com. Revolver premiered my new single, You're a Loose Cannon, But You Get Results, featuring Kate Davies, The People Slicer, back on Friday. You should check it out. I got a sick video for that, and pre-orders for my new album, Boomers, Zoomers, Desperate Coomers, are up now. My next guest is James Mchenry of Blind Equation. Join us this Sunday the 12th at 7 p.m. Central for the live cast. Thanks for being here, John. Hope you had a good time.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for watching and listening.